Hello, my name is Tom Tuning. I'm with the IoT Foundry team here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and today I will be talking to you about data analytics in Bluemix. In this video, I would like to take a practical approach and simulate some data flowing into Bluemix. I will then show how you can use Bluemix applications and services to start analyzing the data. Let's get started by reviewing a data flow which shows how applications and analytics are built in the Internet of Things world. Starting at the top of the diagram, you can see how data flows from devices via MQTT into the IBM Internet of Things Foundation. Today, I will walk you through how to set up simulated sensor data coming into the IOTF, and then show how to get started with two of the analytics options available in Bluemix today. To get started quickly, I'm going to use the IOTF Starter boilerplate. A boilerplate is a set of apps and services with some sample code to get you started. In this case, I will be using the IOTF Starter boilerplate, which includes a Node.js runtime, Node-RED, and a Cloud NoSQL database. Node-RED includes a condition-based monitoring sample flow, which we can connect a simulated sensor device. A -db database will then be added to the flow and synchronized with the information from the Cloud database. I will start with condition-based monitoring and then use the -db capabilities to run some analytics. Let's get started. Here are some helpful links for this presentation. I'll also put these links in the description for this video so you can use them while you're watching. The first link is simply to the Bluemix, and that's where we will find the Internet of Things Foundation Starter boilerplate. The second link will be for the sensor that we're going to use, and there's also a connection test for that sensor so that you can see that the data is flowing into the IOTF from the sensor. All the rest of the links, as for Node-RED or -db or all of the other things, are unique to the instance of the application that you're running, so I cannot add those links here. So let's get started by clicking on the first link and logging into Bluemix. Okay, I've logged on to Node-RED, and we're currently showing the catalog option. And if you'll see, the second boilerplate choice here is the Internet of Things Foundation Starter. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to name it Demo Analytics 23 and click Create. After the application is provisioned, you can go to the dashboard by clicking the dashboard link at the top. And then you can see that the Demo Analytics 23 application has been provisioned, and there are two things. It's got an SDK for Node.js and a Cloud database. If we take a look at our presentation again, we'll see I want to click on these next two links, the sensor link and the connection test for the sensor link. So I'm going to click on those two. And once I do, I'll have a quick start. This is the test. This is what takes you from the sensor, the connection test for the sensor. And I also have started another web browser instance with the actual sensor in it. So if you look up here at the top, you'll see a connection ID. Let's right click on that and say copy. And just to show you a little bit about this sensor, this is a simulated sensor simulating the temperature, and we can change the temperature by clicking the arrows. And if you click the side arrow, it also has information about the humidity and the object's temperature. Alright, so we're going to leave it on temperature for now. We've made a copy of the ID, and we're going to go over to the quick start and type in that ID and click go. So now you can instantly see that the information from this sensor ID is streaming in real time. If I click on the sensor, bring it over, ooh, too hard. If I click on the sensor and change the temperature setting, you can see that here we've got new values coming in real time to our IoT Foundation. We can also scroll down and you can change the information from the temperature to the humidity sensor. And you can see the humidity is coming in at 78 degrees. If we go back to the sensor, we can change the humidity, make it a little bit nicer. And the same for the object temperature. So this is how we're going to end up controlling our values for our simulated sensor. So let's put it back on the temperature. This was just a test to show that the information from the sensor is actually flowing into the IoT Foundation. Alright, so let's go back to the dashboard and we're going to click on our application that we've just started. At the top of the application there is a route which you can change by clicking this thing, this icon. We're going to leave it alone, but we're just going to go ahead and click on this route. And this takes us to a page where we can launch our Node-RED flow editor. Now I'm going to just take a minute and move these around so we can see them better. And this shows us an example of condition-based monitoring. So as the event or the information from the sensor comes in this blue node, it goes through a function which then filters the information down to just the temperature, and then the temperature goes through the switch node, which either says it's safe or it's in danger status. And I will show you an example of that in a second. Alright, so to set this up, we just double click on this blue node and we put in that same device ID and click OK. Once we do that, we have to click deploy up here to redeploy this sheet to so that it's actually running. And these debug nodes, they're the green ones, they have little tabs on them, and if you click them, it actually activates the data, or activates the debug node so you can see it in this debug tab. Alright, I'm going to turn it back off now. And so here you can see the information that is flowing in from the sensor. It is in JSON format, and you can see it has the temperature, the humidity, the object temperature, and the device type, and so on. Let's go ahead and clear that debug, and then we'll turn on the CPU status for in this debug node. And you can see that it's outputting something called temperature critical. So if I go back to my sensor, move it over here, our threshold is set, I believe, at 42 degrees, and we can lower it. And we load it to 38 degrees, and you can see how streaming live, we've changed the limit to the debug here, and now we've got a temperature that says it's in safe limits. So that's an example of how you would take information that's flowing in from a sensor, do some quick analysis on it, and do some condition-based monitoring on it. So let's say you wanted to do something else with this data as it comes in, like you wanted to send an email or a tweet or a message to somebody. You can do that by dragging these output nodes into your flow. Like, for example, if you wanted to send an SMS message using the Twilio service, you could simply drag a new node out here to Twilio and then connect it like we did before. and that would, instead of sending, well, would also be sending to the debug node, would also send as a message to people. You can do more than that. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do. You can send it to WebSockets, TCP nodes, add it to an MQ series queue. There's lots of options here. Okay, so this is an example of how you would take advantage of streaming analytics. So the data comes in, you do some simple analytics to it, and then you affect a result. Okay, so I do not want to do this Twilio node, but what if you want to now do some more batch analytics and some more deeper analysis? So to accomplish that, I am going to take this data and send it to my Cloud database. If you remember, when we deployed our boilerplate, we got a Cloud database, but all this data that's coming in from the sensor is not going to the database. We need to make that happen by creating a database node. All right, so I'm going to put a Cloud database out here, and we're just going to simply, well, let's configure it before I connect it. So the service would be our Cloud database that already exists. And let's name the data sensor test. This will end up being our table name in Cloudant. And this is simply the name of the database in Node-RED. All right, so then we take that data right from there and we connect it in. And now all the data that's coming in from this sensor is now getting stored in this Cloudant database. Well, it will after I hit this deploy button. Okay, from here, let's go back to our dashboard and open our Cloudant database and take a look at the data that's in there, and just verify that the data is flowing from our device into our Cloudant database. So now you can see we have our Node-RED database, and now we have our sensor test database. Click on the sensor test, and you can edit one of these entries and see that we have our data flowing, into our database. We get the name for our ID tag, our temperature, humidity, and object temperature. Looks good. Now that we've collected this data in the database, let's say we want to run some R scripts against the data to get some more analysis. Okay, to do that, I'm going to add another service to my application, and that service is under Data and Analytics, and I'm going to add this -db database. This database will allow us to analyze the data with some predictive analytics, data mining, and analytics with R. So let's click Create here. You can see here our application Demo Analytics 23 now has two databases, or two services underneath of it. One's -db and one's Cloudant. Let's go ahead and launch the -db, and then we're going to synchronize this database with the Cloudant one so that they both have the same data. So from here we can actually synchronize the data from our Cloudant database. So this database sync asks us for four pieces of information: the Cloudant URL, the table name, which, if you remember, was sensor test, and then a Cloudant username and password. All of those we can get. We just need to look around a little bit. So the Cloudant, you go back to here. If we look at the databases, that's our table. We're going to get sensor test. The API URL you can get from clicking here and clicking copy. And let's go back and enter that. And then the username and password, I believe we can get from the dashboard. So let's go back to the overview and look at show credentials. And here we have the username and password. Alright, I've entered the username and password from the dashboard page, and I'm going to click Start Sync. Okay, now that this database is syncing, let's go and take a look at the tables. We're going to select our sensor test table name, and then down here you can see some of the tables. Uh, well, if you click Table Definition, you can see the tables that are coming in, and if you click Browse Data, you can see the data that's coming in from the sensor in real time. So you get the message ID, the payload for the temperature, it's 38. We can change the temperature a few times just so that we get some different data. Of course, in a real environment, all this data would be live and you wouldn't have to do this, but for me, I just want the tables to look more interesting. So I'm going to put a few more different temperature readings in the table. So in this Analytics tab over here, we can click R scripts, and let's go ahead and run an R script against our new data, and let's see what the data looks like. So when you write your scripts, you're going to need to know some of these values, like the schema name and the column names. So make a note of these before you write your scripts. And then we're just going to replace this default script with one I've written already and give it a go and see what it shows us. From the data that we saw in the last panel, you see the schema name of dash 071 017100, and then the table name of sensor test, we had changed that, and then the actual column name of d_temp needs to be changed in the script. And of course you see this d_temp 3 times, right? So we need to change it in all 3 places. Anyway, once you have your script the way you want it, you just click submit. So here, using the power of R, you can generate some nice charts based on the real-time data that's flowing in from the sensors. There's much more that you can do with this package. I've just scratched the surface, but this should give you an idea of the kind of power and flexibility that you can have with analytics with this type of package. To summarize, I've showed you how to take a boilerplate, use some Node-RED flows to do some condition-based maintenance using streaming analytics capabilities, and then take that data and throw it into a database and then run some analytics against it using the capabilities with DashDB and running R scripts. I hope you found this presentation helpful, and for more information I've included some helpful links here, which include the Bluemix main page, some recipes of how to get devices connected, some solutions, and so on and so forth. Thank you very much.